WELSTech is a bi-weekly podcast exploring the intersections of technology and ministry. It is part of the podcast network sponsored by WELS, the Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod. Our show today is hosted by Martin Spriggs and Sally Draper. Welcome back to WELSTech, everybody. It's episode 752, and we're recording it on June 12th, 2025. My name is Martin Spriggs, and this is a show about technology and ministry and where those two intersect. And joining me as usual, Sally Draper. Hello, Sally.
Hi, Martin. Happy to be joining you. I decided that you have a new nickname.
Uh-oh.
It's Waldo. How about that?
I get it.
Perusing Facebook last night, and a mutual friend got married recently, and there was a really cool photo from the wedding. And it turns out you were in the picture, but it was a group picture. And so I was doing the Where's Waldo thing, and I happened to notice that
you probably saw a lot of familiar faces in that photo.
So
that's kind of cool. So right after the wedding, it was my nephew that was getting married to the daughter of one of our MLC IT people. And right after the wedding, they said, everybody go outside. This is at St. Paul's in New Ulm, and go on the steps there to have a group photo. I'd never seen that before. It worked pretty slick.
It was an epic photo. I think that'll be a great memory for them for a lifetime. Sure. Everybody looked so happy, and it was just so neat to see that group gathered around this young couple and enjoying the wonderful celebration. So neat.
So I was in New Ulm 3 weeks ago now, and then I was back in Minnesota just this past week. I was vacationing with my son and his wife. Took our camper up to Superior, Duluth.
Oh,
so
nice
way
area
up there. Yeah.
Went to Split Rock Lighthouse.
We did.
Awesome. Been there.
We did some night kayaking on Superior. Wow. Saw a shipwreck and some sea caves.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very fun vacation.
Lots of hiking. Rained almost every day, but not anything that prevented us from doing what we wanted to do. So it was pretty cool.
So you're back, you're refreshed. This is going to be an A+ podcast today.
Back. I guess I am refreshed. I don't know about the A+ podcast part, but we are starting a new series, as we are wont to do in the summer. We want to gear it down a little bit and strip the show of some of the things we normally do and just kind of single focus and kind of just glide through the summer, take a little bit of a softer approach. And so we thought that one easy way to do that, since the resources are almost endless, is just kind of focus on a little tip or trick that we've come across that we enjoy from our favorite blogs or people that share things. And we thought we'd pick each week we do the show a topic like that. And this week we came across from Concordia Technology Solutions blog, which is one of my favorites, a blog post called Maintaining Healthy Church Staff Communication with Technology. So I think summer is probably a good time to regroup, reset, figure out what the best approaches are to things exactly like this, and that is communicating. Very short article, which is great for our shorter attention spans, but I got some really good stuff in here.
And I agree. And I do have a short attention span. So thanks for that. I made it through the article without any difficulty. It's only a few paragraphs. So, but I think they make some really good points. And right off the bat, they talk about using technology to further communication. And email kind of comes to the top of the list
Yep.
because that's something that we
Lowest
use
common denominator
regularly.
usually, right?
hmm
Mm-hmm.
I was interested to read that it's kind of a standard in corporate America to reply to email within 24 hours. I don't know that everybody complies with that standard, but good
Mm-hmm.
for them for saying that's what it is. But it's not fast communication, I think, is the main thing. If you need an immediate answer, you probably can't be guaranteed that somebody's going to be sitting waiting for your email to come through and reply immediately. So,
Yeah. And depending on who it is, a lot of people don't check email actually every day.
mhm.
So oftentimes when you're dealing with, my experiences have been with church council members most recently. And I know some of them don't. I mean, you can ask them to, but that's just not their lifestyle. They're volunteers, and they're going to check every 2 or 3 days, and you kind of have to expect that. I'd say in corporate communications or areas where you have a little bit more control, let's say over a school faculty or an associate ministry kind of a situation, you can kind of set a standard. One of the things that I like to share with people and my team too is a good healthy practice when you get an email, even if you can't respond or you don't know how to respond, just acknowledge that it was received. Then you can avoid the, hey, did you get my email follow-ups, so that somebody knows that you've read it and that you're on it, at least that it's on your list someplace and they won't be forgotten. So I think that's just a good thing, just to acknowledge that it was received and you will attack it when you can.
And that kind of falls into the category of etiquette. Like, let's have
Hmm.
some good, good, healthy practices around email and things. And one of the things the article gets into is to be careful of the tone that you use.
Hmm.
So, in any kind of digital communication, the other person isn't seeing your face. They aren't reading your body language. They don't know your sarcasm twists that may be
Right.
coming into the conversation. And so things can be easily misinterpreted. And
Hmm.
that doesn't speak well for good communication at all. So
Yeah.
just be very careful of the tone. It even brings out in here that different generations interpret things
Right.
differently. And
Right.
so, just being aware and also careful and maybe rereading, taking the time before you press send to read it through one more time and make
Yeah.
sure you're not miscommunicating in any way.
Yeah, on both sides, because you can come into an email with maybe not the best of attitudes, and that's going to show through. Or you never know what the receiving end, what kind of day they're having, or how they're going to read into something. If they're just struggling with something, or just had another negative email before they read yours, their frame of mind might be not the best either. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Sensitive things are better for in person.
Yep.
And one note that I made was, we at the Senate at least use a lot of video calls. And video
Hmm.
calls, if you're comfortable with the camera, can give some of that in person
Yep.
um, text context is the word I
Hmm.
was looking for. And so I think one thing you need to do in this day and age is be comfortable with the camera. And I
Hmm.
know I call people at times, and there are certain people that just will never turn on their cameras. And it seems kind of archaic to be in that mode now. Just
Hmm.
ignore yourself if you don't want to look at yourself. But
Right.
having the camera on is good communication, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, that's a real time method, and one of
hmm
the advantages, I guess, of email is that it's asynchronous, where you can get to it and reach a larger group who can't be in the same place at the same time too. But totally agree. I think face to face slash video conversations are you can get through a lot of stuff more quickly for one. And
Yeah.
I think just the body language and the eye contact and all the things that go along with that are helpful. So good.
So I just wanted to circle back to one thing you just said, email communication to large groups. And maybe here's a stumbling
Hmm.
block for some, and that's using attachments on emails.
Yeah.
Um, let's say you're working on a document and you've got 5 people on your committee that are really invested in getting this document where it needs to be, and 5 different people make edits on 5 different email attachments. And all of a sudden you
Mm-hmm.
have a big mess on your hands to try to compile all of that. So file management is a huge communication help. So having a cloud-based storage, like a Google Docs or a OneDrive that you share with your team, can really cut down on a lot of challenges around communication.
I had it just happen the other day where it is so much easier to make changes, and there's always going to be some change. Even you look at it yourself. I mean, you created the document and you said, "Oh, now I've got more information. I need to update the document." So if you're attaching this, now you're stuck with another email and another attachment saying, "Oh, ignore the last one," versus just updating the document and they've got the link and they can always see what the latest and greatest is. So yeah,
Mhm,
that's huge. I think that's really important.
mhm,
Another form of communication, I think that is maybe even more appealing to some, and that's text messaging or SMS. Um, and I think one of the appeals is it is probably something that most generations now, maybe all generations, pay more attention to on a real time basis. So if it's important information that can be captured in, shorter text blurbs, um, that may be the way to go. And I know that there are some volunteers that I work with in our church that I can be pretty sure that they're going to read their texts, even if they don't read their emails. So I will use that. So it's a little difficult sometimes to keep them all straight. And there are some disadvantages to text messaging that email has. So the whole contact list, address book,
mhm.
forwarding, that kind of stuff is not a big thing with text. But if you're looking for short, quick, real time, know they're going to see it kind of stuff, I think text messaging is certainly valid.
That's how I call my family to supper.
Mm-hmm.
We have a group text like, it's Chinese tonight, guys, come and get it. So
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
they pay attention. They really do. They respond quickly to those texts. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, text messaging I struggle with a little bit, especially if it always has to be on my phone because I'm not up in the generation where that is so second nature that my thumbs just fly over the keyboard, so it takes me a little bit longer. There's some other challenges there too, but or for many tasks, I think that's a legit approach. So.
I was watching my son text the other day and he was using both his thumbs. And I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. I use my finger one hunting peck at a time. What a concept to actually type with your thumbs.
Right,
Oh,
both of
yeah.
them.
I've
Hmm.
got plenty to learn here. So,
Anyway, so that is another thing. How about let's see, what's the next item in the blog post, Sally? I don't have it in
well, they
front of
talk about
me.
organizing and sharing and using the cloud. And then they kind of
Hmm.
concluded with meeting in person that,
Yep.
some things are just better delivered in person.
Yep.
I think we expanded on it a little bit to include chat as well. So, like a
Yeah.
chat app like Slack or Teams or whatever it may be. Some people use Facebook Messenger as a
Hmm.
chat app and group chat. So those can be really effective. That's what my family uses actually is a Slack channel that
Hmm.
we're all in. And that's how we share photos and things that are happening in our lives with our
Hmm.
family.
Yeah, we use Messenger too for
Mhm.
that. Hmm. Yeah, obviously, everybody's got to be on board with that. Not everybody uses the same tool, so that's one of the challenges.
Mhm.
Um, I think an important kind of overriding theme to this topic is if you're using it for church communications, healthy church staff communications, everybody needs to be on the same page. That there is a uh, maybe a responsibility of somebody who says, this is how we do it. Yeah, here's how we communicate. Here are the rules of the road. These are the tools you need. Um, if it requires getting everybody an account to like a Google workspace or whatever, that's got to be communicated and handled and updated, and don't just assume people know how to use it. I think some training and onboarding needs to be a part of that process. If you want healthy communication, everybody needs to get it. So,
Mm-hmm. And you need to have it easily accessible for new people that join the staff as
mm-hmm,
well, so that
mm-hmm,
they're not starting off in the dark, that they get those standards laid out to them and the training they need.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think another part of healthy church staff communications is just task management, making sure that people understand what the responsibilities are, who's supposed to be doing what, by when, and how it gets communicated that it's done, or if there are questions about a task. So that's a ready-made text kind of technology kind of solution where you're tracking that. There's an accountability built in. There's maybe reminders built into some of these tools. So I think it's important to centralize that too.
And do you have tool recommendations there, Martin?
Well, we've talked about Trello obviously in the
Mm-hmm.
past, and that's pretty easy to understand. I think it's pretty approachable for somebody to jump in
Visual.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. They understand the card concept, and you can put people on a card, and there's going to be email reminders and attachments, and it's pretty full featured. But I would say any of the task managers out there are okay. But that would probably be the one I would gravitate toward. How about you?
Yeah, I was thinking of Trello as well. That's it's so versatile. You can
Mm-hmm.
design, boards around events maybe that you're planning, or you can design boards around functions within the church office, like getting the church bulletin out or the newsletter
Mm-hmm.
out every week, every month. What, who does what pieces of the puzzle and things like that. So
A little bit quote unquote lower tech would be just a list, in a Google Doc, something like
sure.
that,
Hmm.
that you can consistently refer to and track. Put somebody's name behind something, and that's just a monthly, weekly reminder that exists. So it's certainly better than just having a conversation and just assuming people are going to remember it.
I think maybe I'm sensing a theme, and that's standards,
Mm-hmm.
or, these are the rules that we go by. This is how we do these things. And then implementing them and doing them, um, I lost my train of thought, consistently. That's the word I'm
Right.
looking for. So um, that, you model what you expect and you live it, and you, it kind of takes a leader to make this happen.
Mm-hmm. This is important stuff. I mean, I think people can get very frustrated when they want to do things. They've said, yeah, they've raised their hand and said, yeah, I'll do these things. Or they're, paid church staff that is counting on everybody kind of working together, and to have these tools and processes and best practices in places is really a must have to get stuff done with, unless you're planning on meeting every day, which is very unlikely. You need some virtual tools that'll help you along the way. So, yeah, I like the way this article approached it. It's like I say, an intentional process is necessary here. So somebody needs to think about this, document it, communicate it, recommunicate it. I think everybody wins at the end of the day. So good.
Yeah, I needed to tag on at the end, just to look at the Draper Communications. We have our own system. I'm not sure I'd recommend this for everyone, but we use something similar to the bat signal, but we call it a cat signal. And we just shine that, and the queen of our house, she knows that means she's got to kick into gear and get things done or whatever. So if
Is
you're
she
not
good at
seeing
getting
the
things done?
video, yeah, there's a picture of my cat staring at a cat silhouette on the windowsill. So I thought it was kind of funny and fit right in with communication, because that's how we do it here at the Drapers.
Right.
Mhm.
All right, Sally. We'll put a link to the article in the show notes. And if you have feedback on things that have worked for you from a church communications or staff communications perspective, let us know. So we would love to share that too. All right, let's move on to our own picks of the week, tips and or picks of the week. Sally, what did you bring today?
I am going to do a screen share one more time and talk about an article I stumbled across this past week. It's from Education Week, and I think they have like you can only access so many articles in a certain period of time. But if you haven't been there recently, you should be able to get access to this article and subscribe to their newsletters if you're interested. Anyway, it's an AI centered article. Putting AI to work in schools is difficult. A new toolkit outlines how to do it. And this is a toolkit actually published by our friends at Common Sense Education, Common Sense Media. We've talked about them throughout the podcast history, and they do good work there. And basically, this article is kind of a Q&A with one of the people behind the Common Sense Media release. Um, yeah, I was trying to look for his name. Anyway, Robbie Torney is his name. He's Senior Director of AI Programs for Common Sense Media. And so if you're interested in some of the background and why Common Sense wanted to put together an AI toolkit, you can certainly check out this article. If you go to the link in the article, you're going to land on a page on the commonsense.org website under their education wing, which is titled An AI Toolkit for School Districts, an action-oriented guide to help school districts implement AI safely, responsibly, and effectively. And so it's speaking to strategy, benefits for your school district, and it's very customizable, that kind of thing. So if you follow their links, you're going to land in, first of all, in a Google slide. And I think I'm a little further down into it now, but it's a district-focused roadmap for thoughtful AI implementation. And they talk through some of the purposes and how to use it. There's planning tools, there's implementation roadmap, etc. One of the things they link to is this toolkit at a glance. And you can see that basically they've taken kind of an outlined approach to how they lay out the resources they've come up with. Task force decision guides, procurement and vendor selection, infrastructure, pilot programs. They've got a lot of things addressed in a very comprehensive resource that they've put together. So digging into the resource a little, it's just loaded with links, and there's an assessment tool that'll help you kind of figure out your readiness for implementing AI, different ways you can make use of that tool, and then kind of a readiness scale where you go through and have we started doing any work in this area? Are we getting emerged in it? Are we developing? Are we established? And you kind of self audit your school district or your school to see how you're doing in these different areas. If nothing else, a good read for food for thought around AI and its far-reaching scope and what it might mean as you implement it in your school setting. So I didn't get a lot deeper than that. It's obviously very deep. There's a lot to it, but I think it's probably a good resource for people to consider as they're looking at AI in their schools.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is people understand maybe the need to address this AI thing. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't know where to start, what end to grab. So there's so much stuff out there that this truly is, I think, a top down, let's start here and think about it systematically. And even if it's not, the exact right questions or tool for you, I think it helps with some structured thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did a nice
Exactly.
job. and
Yes.
totally approachable too. It's not, way out and that you have to have a lot of AI experience to even understand what they're talking about. Well done. Yeah.
A
Good find.
place to a place to start.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
My pick of the week, I actually have two for one here. They're kind of related by the same company, Google. Notebook LM has been around for quite some time. We've talked about it on this show. Notebook LM is a tool created by Google, which allows you to essentially upload your own content. So you're adding your own content. It can be lots of different things. It can be audio files, video files, text documents, all that kind of stuff, websites. And it becomes the language model that the AI would use to do stuff. You can summarize stuff, you can ask questions, you can produce things from it. They have, they meaning Google, have made this into an app now. It used to be just a website. Now it is available in app form, both on Android and iOS. So it becomes a lot more portable. And a lot of the things that you would find for this purpose are things that maybe you come across on your phone. So you don't have to go back to the computer to create this. And there's a lot of good tutorials out there. And maybe in a future episode, we can talk about some of the uses for Notebook LM. But a lot of people are using it as their note taking tool of choice because the notes have then a life or can have a life beyond just the single purpose for which you took a note. So you're putting it in you're putting it in an area where you're capturing other notes on a particular topic. I think a good use case just off the top of my head for this would be, let's say, faculty meeting notes or church council meeting notes. They all go in a notebook, LM notebook, and it becomes immediately searchable and discoverable and reportable. Um, Having it just on an app makes it a little bit more flexible. So they did a nice job with it. That's part one. Part two is also by Google, and you may be even seeing this in your Google search bar already. But if you go to google.com under Google Labs, that's where they start uh, pet projects that may have a future, may not. I think this one might, but they call it AI mode. So if you turn that on, then essentially your Google searches become more of an AI experience, and you're using AI right out of the box rather than the traditional Google search. So you're not necessarily using something like Gemini or Perplexity or Copilot or something like that. You're still using Google, but they've layered on this AI mode, so it acts a lot more like an AI. So your queries are more interactive, and you can get responses and have more of a chat versus just your typical AI or just your typical Google search experience. So that's totally free. Both of these are free. I think there are premium models for Notebook LM, but Google AI mode is free to turn on, and you can give it a try. If you don't like it, just turn it off, and you're back to regular old Google. So those are my picks of the week.
That's pretty cool, Martin. I have turned it on officially, so
Okay.
see what kind of insights it can give me.
Yeah, if you want kind of a down and dirty, I want to search on for this website or this little piece of information, maybe it's overkill, and you can quickly go back to that single search tool. But many of the things I'm searching for, I want a little bit richer experience. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, very nice.
Shall we move on to community feedback, Sally?
Sure, we have a little bit of that, maybe the most we've ever gotten,
Mm.
as a matter of fact. Our most recent show prior to this was our interview with Pastor Nate Siles, who's in the multi-language productions area for Wells, and his experience with generating AI music. And that did kind of spark some interesting discussion on the web.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's good. That's a good thing as long as it's constructive. And so
Mhm.
we always want that discussion to be good and hopefully constructive. And I think there were some great points made, and we're not going to go through all of them at this point. But I think one of the challenges when you're talking about AI is people want to always kind of distill it down to an absolute. AI is this, AI is that, AI is stealing, AI is good, AI is bad. I think there are a lot of different opinions, and I don't think we're at a point in the world of AI and its introduction to say any of those things. I think there were certain instances where it is all of those things, but it's important to, I think, recognize that this is a evolving discussion and that there are lots of different nuances to how AI works. These large language models are all created differently around different content. And I think that's still going to work its way through, in some cases, the court system. Is this legal? Is it not? How do you define uh, rights to a particular piece of content? I think even fair use is a valid conversation around AI. And they probably had that when they set up the fair use laws that exist in our land today. And there are still some that don't agree that fair use isn't stealing either. Because why should
Mhm.
you set a limit on somebody's intellectual property, saying, well, after so many years, it's no long, it's okay to use their stuff without paying for it. So I think there's lots of different conversations that are going to go on over the course of the coming months and years. And one of the reasons that we wanted to put together an AI task force is to kind of wade through those waters, understand, what a Christian's response is to AI. And, it's our responsibility for the sake of the gospel to consider all tools if they are things that God would have us use. So, good discussion, and I would encourage that to continue in a loving way, of course. So, any thoughts
Yeah.
on that, Sally?
Well, I'll just say AI is not going away. And
Right.
so one way or another, and probably in a multitude of different ways, we'll be responding to it in our future. So
Mm-hmm. Yep,
yeah,
for sure. Definitely complicated. I would say avoid absolutes at this point until we kind of figure that stuff out. So, because it's going to change for sure. All right. So thanks for everybody who did contribute to that conversation, and we'll continue to have that conversation, I'm sure.
good.
There was other news in community feedback, Sally.
Yeah, just recently, our friend Michael Vlieger, who teaches at Risen Savior here in Mankato, um, sent out a WELSTech group email. So if you aren't part of the WELSTech group, it's a Google group. And when you sign up, then you can send an email to the group and everyone receives it and can reply. It's all recorded online. So if you don't want to get the emails, you can actually just monitor the group message board online or whatever. But Michael sent one and asked about basically decommissioning some Chromebooks. So he has a set of Chromebooks that are coming out of the system. They're still fully functional, but they're not receiving updates, that kind of thing. So just ideas of getting those into the hands of people who might be interested in having a Chromebook device. And there was some really good responses. That's what we can count on from our WellsTech Google group. There's people out there with experience who are willing to share. And so just a variety of things. Someone shared links to some Google support things that talked about what to do with it. People shared pricing points, experience of power washing things and having some kind of purchase agreement. And then someone even said if Chromebooks have an expiration date for updates, probably would want to make people aware of that and disclose that the operating system may be vulnerable. So just lots of different angles to look at with just what seems like a simple request, but our guys jumped in and gave you lots to think about. So good
Mm-hmm.
luck with that, Michael. You can let us know how it goes if you're so inclined.
Yeah. While we're on the topic, Sally, remind our good folks how they can contribute to the show.
Well, that's a great thing to remind them of. I'll do a quick screen share of our show notes website. It's welstech.wels.net. That's where you can find the history of WELSTech. 752 episodes will be there as soon as we get this one produced. And up along the top bar, there's links to all our different social media. So you can find us on Facebook and Twitter. We're even on Pinterest. That's Martin's favorite place. We are on Instagram. We have a Digo page. I don't know if it's been very active lately. But you can also email us at welstech@wels.net. And we are always happy to find your comments right here on the show notes blog if you're so inclined. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, you can find it at welstech.wels.net and go from there.
Let me ask the question, is Pinterest still a thing?
Is Pinterest still a thing? Yes, of
Okay.
course it
I
is.
just have to ask the question once in a while
It's a
just to
visual
make sure we
world.
still need the logo there.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's important.
Okay. We'll keep it. All right. All those places are places that you can join us in the conversation, and we'd love to hear your voice. That's going to about do it for 752. We're going to come back in 753 with another tip or trick that we've come across. I think you'll enjoy this series this summer. So hopefully that was useful to you today, and we look forward to joining again in a couple weeks where we'll do it all over again. Thanks, Allie, and thanks all to all of our listeners. We will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.